In the wake of increasing cyber attacks on American businesses, a bipartisan bill targeted to bolster the country's cybersecurity capabilities is being brought to the floor of the House of Representatives. That bill was introduced by our next guest, Representative Ro Khanna of California and Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina. And welcome to both of you. Before we dig into this, I mean, when I first heard about it, I thought this was going to be something that maybe looked at all the problems that were happening with American companies. But you're really looking at what's potentially at risk for federal agencies, correct, Ro?
Correct. I mean, both are necessary, but first we have to get a handle on what is happening in our government. I mean, after the SolarWinds attack, we need to recruit the best talent into the government. And what the bill does is allow cybersecurity professionals to rotate through the different federal agencies so we have a consistent response across the government and so we can attract the best people in helping protect American security.
Nancy, what are the problems and the risks that you see at the federal agencies at this point? Why do you think that changing the employees and changing the way employees are hired and brought in can do something to prevent some of these potential attacks?
Well, with some of these most recent attacks, we're seeing that our cybersecurity is national security, whether that's the Colonial Pipeline we saw most recently in the Southeast. Just last year in 2020, there were 11 federal agencies that were targeted in a hack by hackers that were related to Russia. And so we want to make sure that, we've got to keep our federal government secure and our data and information secure. And we got to make sure that the private sector has all the tools and resources that they need. One of the great things about this bill, and I want to thank Representative Ro Khanna, is that this is one of the very few places that we're seeing Republicans and Democrats work together. Not only that, but we're talking Silicon progressives and Southern conservatives working together to make our nation more secure. So
let me ask, though, what this is really focused on is trying to get better employees or employees who have more experience working with cybersecurity into the federal agencies. Do you think federal agencies are at a much heightened risk or worse off than public companies are at this point? And Ro, I'll come back to you again on that.
I do think federal agencies are at risk. Let me say I've enjoyed working with Representative Mace on this and agree with her. This is one of the few areas of real bipartisanship. But what I would say is our military, I'm on the Armed Services Committee, our military is extraordinary in protecting the most advanced weapons and the most critical areas of our national security. But you have a lot of federal agencies that are still at risk. As Representative Mace said, Russia just hacked into so many of these agencies, looking at personnel files, looking at sensitive information. And if we do not strengthen that security, we are going to be subject to continuous attacks from Russian-supported hackers, Chinese-supported hackers, Iranian-supported hackers. So this really is important to protect all of government, not just the Pentagon.
This will allow you to rotate employees, Nancy, but do employees want to do that? Is that the case right now? Are these just very strict rules that are preventing employees from doing what they want to do, or is it preventing the agencies from being able to get qualified and able bodies?
Well, I think it's an important strategy to beef up our cybersecurity. And this is going to be studied before we scale up. And it'll be overseen, this program, rotational program, will be overseen by multiple federal agencies and multiple councils, including the CIO Council and Homeland Security, to make sure that we are being efficient and effective with creating greater protections for federal agencies and the federal government and the data of the American people that the federal government holds.
I mean, is part of the problem, though, that you need to pay employees more? Because that's always been kind of the rub, that it's difficult to get very highly technically qualified individuals to work in the government because the pay there is just less than it's going to be in a place like Silicon Valley. Nancy?
Right. Well, there are technology employees and experts all across the country, even in my home state of South Carolina. And so there is great opportunity both in the private and public sector and the federal government for these jobs and opportunity. One of the things that I do see across the board where we're talking the federal, state, or even private sector is a lack of talent. It's not so much a lack of pay, but a lack of really highly skilled, highly trained workers. And so if you're a student or a kid out there or someone in college looking at cybersecurity and computer technology, I say go all in. There is so much opportunity out there for you to grow and have a great career in it because of the threats that we see around the world against the United States.